You know, it's a useless phrase. Stay safe or have a good day. Why do you tell somebody to stay safe? Are you implying that their plan was to not be safe, or that they were just going to be completely reckless in whatever they're about to go and do? Or when you tell somebody to have a good day, do you think it's like lunch, something to pick up? Like it's a noun? A day is not a noun. It's not a thing that you can pick up. And staying safe is just something that we do because we're humans. We like to preserve our own health to some degree. But, you know, I feel like, I know that I say these sort of things. I say stay safe, especially right now while the world's on fire. It's kind of hard not to tell somebody to stay safe. Or when somebody's leaving your house for, the first time in the last 3 months, you want to tell them to have a good day because it's kind of instinctive. You're used to doing it. But the more I think about these phrases, the more they come off to me like a demand or kind of a threat. You'd better have a good day because I do not want to deal with you if you come home and you're upset. I just don't want to hear about it. I don't care. And you tell somebody to stay safe because you don't want to have to nurse them back to health if they find themselves, in harm's way of some kind, or if they're sick, especially with the Roni. No one wants to take care of that. People will you have to literally, to take care of them, you have to stay as far away from them as possible. One of my favorite things I've ever seen, as far as kind of a sign-off or like a statement to make to somebody, comes from Night of the Living Dead director George Romero. Something he would put at the end of his autographs or sometimes at the end of a talk is, "Stay scared." I have no idea what that's supposed to mean, but at least you leave your audience with something interesting. I'm Matty and welcome to the first ever, and hopefully only ever, Summerween Ghoulish graduation special. And I only say only ever because it's the apocalypse. I'd much prefer to have people here, as is tradition, in my backyard to celebrate Summerween. But right now with the Roni going around, I feel like I gotta take care of my friends, my neighbors, my countrymen, and keep it distant and make this kind of special thing. Anyway, Summerween. Does anybody even remember where it comes from? I know I do, but I feel like I talk about it like it's a time-honored and ancient tradition, something that has been around for eons, for lifetimes. But it really actually all comes back to a show called Gravity Falls by a guy named Alex Hirsch. It was on the Disney Channel, it was on Disney XD by the time it ended, but the whole premise of the show is that it takes place during the summertime, and they want to do a Halloween episode around October. But if the show takes place during the summertime, how are you going to do a Halloween episode? So they ended up doing something that just blew me away, which was creating this thing called Summerween, which takes place at the end of June. Me being the Halloween enthusiast I am, I took full advantage of that idea and brought it into my own life and brought it into the world, or at least my scope of the world. In addition to celebrating this very fake holiday, we'll also be acknowledging the graduates of the apocalyptic year of 2020, of which I'm one of them. At the end of the show, I have just a little something I'd like to say to my fellow graduates to help us get through the rest of the apocalypse. Now, normally for Summerween, we celebrate here in the Holy Land, this very backyard, which I've been celebrating Summerween for the last, well, this would have been the 5th year, but, things being as they are. I like to have friends over, okay? I like to cut up watermelons and make them look like jack-o'-melons, and generally overuse my Halloween decorations until they just give out on me. Stuff that's supposed to last you for years. I feel like I have to keep replenishing it because I celebrate Summerween, I celebrate Halloween. This year I celebrated Quarantinoween. Anybody remember that? I do. I feel like if there's something I should invest in, it's Summerween merch. If I can get Summerween merch to exist in stores, maybe I can make more people feel like this is a legitimate holiday. Instead of it being a fake holiday like Christmas in July, which is never taken, I can actually get Summerween to become established. Anyway, I digress. So, why are we doing this? Why am I doing a video? Well, I've always wanted to be a horror host. I've always loved horror hosts, whether it be Joe Bob or Zachary or a slew of other ones. And I figured I should give a try at it. So, I'm going to be filling you with a bunch of information that you never knew you didn't want to know about a movie that you never knew you didn't want to see. And in the spirit of imitating greatness, imitating other great horror hosts, I felt like pick a movie that is trying to imitate greatness as well. A movie that's trying to imitate excellent sci-fi movies from the 50s and ends up being one of the worst sci-fi movies from the 50s. I'm of course talking about the Ed Wood classic, Plan 9 from Outer Space. So, Ed Wood, the director, and Plan 9 from Outer Space. Both the director and the movie kind of came into popularity in the 80s and 90s with this book that came out by brothers Henry and Michael Medved. Could be Harry. It doesn't really matter. That's not the point. They wrote this book called The Golden Turkeys, which was talking about some of the worst movies in their opinion. In this book, they decided to name Ed Wood the worst director of all time and Plan 9 from Outer Space the worst movie of all time. Now, if you've ever seen Plan 9 from Outer Space, I feel like you would not agree that it's the worst movie of all time. It's actually surprisingly watchable. Most of his movies are surprisingly watchable. He's got the big three: Glen or Glenda, Bride of the Monster, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Yeah, they got problems, plenty of problems, but like, they're all pretty watchable. You know, as a director, Ed Wood was never really about the details. He generally was, let's just shoot the thing, let's get it done. So if there was a mistake or somebody said a line weird, he hardly ever did retakes. It would just be one take, two takes at most, maybe. But generally, just trying to get through the movie quick. He didn't have a lot of money, he didn't have a lot of time. He would shoot movies quick and get them done and in the can pretty fast. That was just kind of what he was about. In a way, he was kind of one of the early examples of like indie filmmaking before that really became a popular sort of genre or filmmaking practice. So with this newfound popularity in the 80s and 90s, it led to a big budget Tim Burton movie starring Johnny Depp where he was playing Ed Wood. Great movie about making movies. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But that's not the point. You know, when these movies came out in the 50s, nobody cared. Nobody was interested in watching them because they just saw it for all the flaws that it had at the time. It wasn't as good as other stuff. It had all these imperfections, and you know, the lines are kind of weird. It wasn't. These are some of the first foundational movies in the genre of it's so bad, it's good. And at the time, people couldn't appreciate it. But later on, with, you know, decades later, people were down. People were ready for Ed Wood after he died. Such a drag, because I feel like he would love how much people love his movies now, even though they're not liked in the way that he probably would have wanted them to be liked. Now, at least, you know, Tommy Wiseau, he made The Room, but now he's appreciated the fact that people like The Room, even though it's not for the reason why he thought people would dig it. Anyway, so along with all this popularity, people loved Ed Wood's steez, kind of his like way of approaching life and filmmaking, just being all about it, going after what you want to do, including anybody and everyone. That this whole persona, this kind of person, led to the beginning of the Church of Ed Wood, which online boasts a total of 3,000 ordained members of the church. Now, where they meet and what they do, I'm really not sure, but I can't say that I'm not fascinated. Anyway, I digress. I could talk about Ed Wood and just kind of his strangeness all night long, but I want to get to watching Plan 9. So, without further ado, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Word of warning though, the opening monologue, it's by a guy named Criswell, he had this show called Criswell Predicts on TV. You can't find any of it now because it was all on live TV and they didn't know how to keep recordings of it at the time, I guess. Anyway, Guy was known for making weird predictions. Predictions like we were going to colonize Mars in the 70s, and that there was going to be this town where all the women in the town, their hair would fall out and the men would turn to cannibals. I don't really get what the deal was, but somehow him and Ed Wood fell into the same circles and he was part of this movie. He does the opening monologue and he narrates the whole story. The monologue itself makes no sense. It's so hard to follow. I've seen this movie more times than I care to mention, and I still don't know what the monologue's about. Maybe someday somebody will figure it out, but just wanted to give you a word of warning. Okay, let's get to the movie.
Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future. You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we are bringing to you the full story of what happened on that fateful day. We are giving you all the evidence based only on the secret testimony of the miserable souls who survived this terrifying ordeal. The incidents, the places. My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer. Let us punish the guilty. Let us reward the innocent. My friend, can your heart stand the shocking facts about grave robbers from outer space? All of us on this earth know that there is a time to live and that there is a time to die. Yet death is always a shock to those left behind. It is even more of a shock when death, the proud brother, comes suddenly without warning. Just at sundown, a small group gathered in silent prayer around the newly opened grave of the beloved wife of an elderly man. Sundown of the day, yet also the sundown of the old man's heart. For the shadows of grief clouded his very reason. The funeral over, the saddened group left the graveside. It was when the gravediggers started their task that strange things began to take place.
15-4. Yep, right on schedule. There's the old San Fernando Valley out there now.
You better radio in for landing instructions, Danny.
Right, Jeff. Burbank Tower, this is American Flight 812. Over. Wouldn't surprise me any if he's asleep this time of the morning.
American Flight 812, this is Burbank Tower. If I were asleep, you'd never get on the ground. In your case, maybe I ought to leave you up there for good. Over.
You got me that time, Mac. This is American Flight 812 requesting...
Burbank Tower. Tower to American Flight 812. Over. Burbank Tower to American Flight 812. Over.
Holy mackerel.
Burbank Tower to American Flight 812. Are you in trouble?
Trouble?
Take a look for yourself.
What in the world?
That's nothing from this world.
Burbank Tower to American Flight 812. Are you in trouble? Are you in trouble?
Mayday, mayday. Stand by, Burbank Tower.
You suppose a passenger saw it?
I doubt it. Most of them are asleep. But it was quite a jolt, Jeff. I'll check.
Good. We'll get it ready for landing. And keep it quiet until we get instructions.
Right.
Okay, Danny.
American Flight 812, reporting to Burbank Tower. Over.
Did you hear anything?
I thought it did.
Don't like hearing noises, especially when there ain't supposed to be any.
Yeah, sort of spooky like.
Maybe we're getting old.
Whatever it is, it's gone now.
That's the best thing for us, too. Gone.
Yeah, let's go.
Right there, we have our first two off-screen deaths. Now, just a little bit of spoilers. Most of the deaths in this movie are off-screen. I think it has something to do with just keeping it simple. Instead of having to worry about making a special effect and making a death look cool or interesting, it's just easier to let them die off-screen. You just hear a scream, and that's it. Also, I feel like at this point I've got to mention the presence of Vampira in this movie, which I feel like most people are familiar with Vampira. We've seen her before, or we've seen something that looks like her, Elvira, you know what I mean? Anyway, so Vampira, who was a horror host back in the 50s, at the time was out of work. She had a really successful show hosting horror movies late night. And, you know, she did that for a whole year and it was doing really well. But at one point, the network ABC decided they wanted to buy the character off of her, and that was kind of a main stipulation to keep the show going. They wanted the rights and she didn't want to sell. So they decided to can the show. So within just a year of a successful show, the actress Mila Nurmi, who was Vampira, was out of work. She'd do random spots here and there and do different work, but kind of over time ran into Ed Wood and they were sort of familiar with each other. So he got her to agree to be in this movie, but her big stipulation was that she didn't want to have to say anything. She didn't want any lines. So she doesn't say a single word the entire movie. She's just this silent ghoul. But you know what? I feel like she kind of adds to the movie because at least she looks spooky, because she looks like her character Vampira. So, the cockpit, the plane cockpit. Did you guys notice when the flying saucers came by, the little shadow of boom mic towards the top of the screen? I love that. I feel like I love the fact that this movie, you just see all the little like stuff that, you know, is totally not meant to be seen or is hardly ever seen in any other movie. But in Ed Wood movies, it's fine, it's left. That would have been normally a retake, but they just left it in. Somebody tried to claim that this movie is supposed to be seen in widescreen, that it was originally going to be like oriented to be played in movies widescreen so you wouldn't see that, but I don't buy it because I've never seen any, in all my research about that, I've never seen any hard evidence about it. It's just kind of hearsay. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Criswell, okay? Our guy that gave the opening monologue and continues on with the really preachy narration. So I mentioned earlier that he makes predictions, or made predictions, really wild predictions. Though, honestly, probably the wildest one that he made that actually came true. So, 1962, he makes a prediction that President Kennedy is not going to run for re-election in 1963 because of something that'll happen in November of 1963. What happened in 1963 in November? Kennedy was assassinated. He made that prediction a year earlier, and it somehow came true. I mean, I know that the guy is kind of crazy otherwise, but that's kind of spooky to me. I mean, how weird. What a, like, I mean, how could that have happened? What? I don't even know. I don't understand it, but it blew my mind when I read that. Anyway, coming up, we've got some clips of Bela Lugosi, and throughout this movie, they're just kind of thrown in a bunch of different spaces, whether it's him kind of wandering around the front of a house, or wandering around a graveyard, or into a house with his Dracula cape and kind of doing this little action. Those clips are how this movie really began to be funded and made, and the whole Shinola. And they weren't even meant for this movie. They were meant for a later project that Ed Wood wanted to make called The Ghoul Goes West. But he wanted to make a movie. He had a different script called Grave Robbers from Outer Space, and he lived in this apartment complex where his landlord, Ed Reynolds, who was a minister at the First Baptist Church of Beverly Hills, they wanted to make a series of religious films, and they only had enough money to make one movie. They wanted to make a bunch, but they didn't want to start and then not be able to finish the project. So he pitches the idea of them funding his movie making a bunch of money, and then using that money to make their movies. So of course, Ed Reynolds and the ministers at the church say, "Cool, sounds good, we'll fund your movie." Ed Wood's stoked. He's like, "Great, we're gonna get this money," and little did he know all the stuff that would come along with taking money from a church. First of them being, everybody in the movie, the cast, the crew, everyone had to be baptized. That was one of their big stipulations. So they all go, and part of the problem is their baptismal is just normal sized. It's not huge, it's not a pool. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen baptismal, but it's pretty much just like the size of a bathtub, maybe a little bit bigger. In this movie, there's this guy, Tor Johnson, who is this just mountain of a man, this Swedish wrestler, and he couldn't fit. So what they ended up going to a church member's house that was nearby and doing all the baptisms in a pool, just to accommodate for Tor. But the church didn't just have them baptized, they had a number of different things that they wanted from Ed Wood, including changing the title from Grave Robbers from Outer Space, because that would be upsetting and sacrilegious, to be Plan 9 from Outer Space. That was a little bit more palatable for the churchgoers. As well as they had their thoughts on the casting. They decided to cast, without Ed Wood's permission or input on the matter, cast their choir director, Gregory Walcott, as the leading man, Jeff Trent, who was one of the pilots in the cockpit. Gregory Walcott, for years, was really embarrassed by this movie. He just felt so uncomfortable for years to come, decades to come. But as it came into popularity, and it was kind of part of that whole "it's so bad it's good" thing, he started to embrace it. He was down for interviews, and he even makes a cameo in that Tim Burton Ed Wood movie in the second scene when they're back at the Brown Derby, if you know what I'm talking about. He's the old guy that kind of points towards Bella, or Martin Landau playing Bela Lugosi, saying how he doesn't look so good. Anyway, that's him. Anyway, I feel like we got to get back to the movie. Last notes before I let you get back to it. Day for night. There's a lot of day for night in this movie. They drive to the cemetery, and it's clearly day outside, and then somehow it's pitch black because clearly they're shooting the cemetery scenes in a studio. And yeah, just get ready for more off-screen deaths.
The grief of his wife's death became greater and greater agony. The home they had so long shared together became a tomb, a sweet memory of her joyous living. The sky to which she had once looked was now only a covering for her dead body. flowers she had planted, with her own hands, became nothing more than the lost roses of her cheeks. Confused by his great loss, the old man left that home, never to return again. At the funeral of the old man, unknown to his mourners, his dead wife was watching.
First his wife, then he.
Tragic.
Tell me something. Why was his wife buried in the ground and he sealed in a crypt?
Something to do with family tradition, a superstition of some sort.
Oh.
Well, it's getting dark. Let's be on our way.
Then, as two of his mourners left his final resting place, minutes later, the police, led by Inspector Daniel Clay, arrived at the scene.
Who found them?
The man and girl.
Medical examiner been around yet?
Just left. The morgue wagon ought to be along most any time.
You get their statement?
Yeah, much as we could. They're pretty scared.
Finding a mess like this ought to make anyone frightened. Have one of the boys take the guy and the girl back to town. You take charge.
Okay, Inspector. What are you going to do?
Look around a little.
It's pretty dark out there. Once you get beyond the range of those lights, you won't be able to see your hand in front of your face.
I will get one of the flashlights from the patrol car.
Okay, be careful, Clay.
I'm a big boy now, Johnny.
Okay. Oh, it looks like a bobcat tore into them.
Yeah. Say, Lieutenant, did you get that funny odor?
How could I miss it? Oh, that'll be the morgue wagon now.
That's the fifth siren in the last hour.
Something's happened down at the cemetery. A lot of police cars and lights. I stopped, but I didn't see anything. Oh, well, whatever it is, the morning paper will carry the whole story.
You seem to still be up there somewhere.
Maybe I am.
I don't think I've ever seen you in this mood before.
I guess it's because I've never been in this mood before.
Something about your flight?
Yeah.
What happened, Jeff?
I saw a flying saucer.
Saucer? You mean the kind from up there?
Yeah, its counterpart. It was shaped like a huge cigar. Dan and Edith saw it too. And when it passed over, the whole compartment lighted up with a blinding glare. Then there was a tremendous wind that practically knocked us off our course.
Well, did you report it?
Yeah, I radioed in immediately, and they said, we'll keep it quiet until you land. And as soon as we landed, big Army brass grabbed us and made us swear to secrecy about the whole thing. Oh, it burns me up. These things have been seen for years. They hear, it's a fact. And the public ought to know about it.
There must be something more you can do about it.
Only there isn't. Oh, but what's the use of making a fuss? But last night I saw a flying object that couldn't have possibly been from this planet. But I can't say a word. I'm muzzled by Army brass. I can't even admit I saw the thing.
Sounds like Kay's in trouble.
If that apparition we saw had something to do with it, come on.
Is he dead?
Yeah. He's messed up as bad as those two back there. Suppose that saucer or whatever it was had something to do with this?
Your guess is as good as mine, Larry. One thing's sure. Inspector Clay's dead. Murdered. And somebody's responsible.
You're in charge now, Lieutenant.
Yeah, guess I am. Calvin? Yes, sir? Get back up the car and get on the radio. Tell the coroner he's got to make another trip out here.
Well, how about the lab boys?
Well, who do you think we left back up the car? Boy Scouts? Come on, Larry.
One thing's for sure, Inspector Clay is dead, murdered, and somebody is responsible. What's the point of that? Why do you gotta, he's dead, murdered, and somebody's responsible? If someone's murdered, of course someone is responsible. This movie is full of nonsensical lines, things that just kind of, it repeats itself in a way to, as if, you know, the listener is not understanding what's being said. They're just making it extra clear that murdered and someone's responsible. It's brilliant. I love it. There's another line in there where the guy, Jeff Trent, says, I can't say a word. I'm muzzled by Army brass. I can't even say I saw the thing. Why? We already know that you can't say anything. The lines, it's just, they're rough, but they're great because it's, you know, I feel like it's so clearly something that he just drafted in a matter of a couple days, maybe a few hours, and just, cool, nope, looks good, sounds good. Love it. Did you notice the cop that was pointing the gun at himself and at other people when he was talking and they were in the cemetery? That actor's name is Duke Moore, and he was not stoked with how much Ed Wood did not care about the details, how much he wasn't paying attention. So to test him, he ended up holding his gun and pointing it at himself, pushing up his hat and pointing it at other people and other stuff. Stuff that you should never do with a gun, ever, even if it's a prop gun. And yeah, obviously it's still in the movie, so he wasn't paying attention. But I love that. Almost any time he has the gun in his hand, he points at himself and at other people all through the movie. Also, let's kind of just pinpoint on one more line. I hate to talk about lines so much this time, but I feel like they're worth emphasizing. There's that point where where the character Jeff Trent is describing the flying saucer, and he's calling it a huge cigar. I don't know, maybe I don't get it, but a flying saucer does not look like a cigar to me at all. Never has. I've never seen a picture of like what would be like a 50s flying saucery ship that looks like a huge cigar. So I don't know where that came from. Sounds like something you just like, what's the spaceship gonna look like? Just call it a huge cigar, which sounds like a giant flying turd. Also, did you notice the fence in the backyard? How it was all kind of wavy. It looks like they just had like a black backdrop and just took white paint and like, cool, looks like a fence, and it's all like weird and shaped and you know, doesn't line up properly at all. Every time I get to the backyard in this movie, I notice the fence and I can't not look at it because it's just so funky, you know? But I love it. It's just more evidence of the whole idea of it's not about the details, it's about the big picture. Speaking of not being about the details but the big picture, have you guys noticed the horizontal light that goes by every time the flying saucers are supposed to be flying overhead? It just, to indicate the flying saucer, it's just one whoosh of horizontal light. Keep an eye out for it the next time that you are getting the sense that the flying saucer shows up. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense. I guess they're being pushed by the force of the flying saucer going by, as if it has a really strong exhaust. I feel like I've never gotten the impression of that in any other alien movie, any other sci-fi movie. What else? Okay, let's talk about this Bela character, the Bela Lugosi character, that ghoul. So he's died, he comes back, and somehow he's immediately taller, he's skinnier, and does not look like Bela Lugosi at all. That's because he's not Bela Lugosi. He's a guy named Tom Keene, who happened to be his Ed Wood's girlfriend's chiropractor at the time. But he was convinced, oh man, okay, you know what? If we just put like, the guy was bald, by the way. So if we put a wig on him, if we have him pull up a cape, he can look kind of like Bela Lugosi did when he was playing Dracula. He literally has the cape up like this every time you're looking at his face. And he has to like hunch. It's just weird. Doesn't look like Bela Lugosi at all. I feel like I have to remind myself that's who he's supposed to be as I watch this movie. Also, did you guys get a head count of how many people came out of the mausoleum after the funeral for the Bela Lugosi character, the ghoul? Which he never had a name. I guess it was just the old man. That mausoleum thing that looks just like, you know, 3 pieces of cardboard with a little door. 4 adults came out of there. I don't know how they fit in there. I've watched this movie, again, I don't know how many times, but I don't know how they all fit in there. And just imagining them all like, you know, scrunched up in there trying to make themselves fit. It's heartwarming. I love it. And with Inspector Clay's death, that's our 4th off-screen death, and definitely not the last. All right, at this point, let's just get back to it and roll the movie.
Greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for another. It is always difficult to have last words over the grave of a friend,
And Inspector Daniel Clay was a friend, a dear friend to me and to all of us. The bell has rung upon his great career. Now we lay him to rest. A rest well deserved, but so premature.
People turning south from the freeway were startled when they saw 3 flying saucers high over Hollywood Boulevard. A woman, startled by the sight in the sky, telephones the police. There comes a time in each man's life when he can't even believe his own eyes. Saucers seen over Hollywood. Flying saucers seen over Washington, D.C. The Army convoy moved into the field. Rockets were quickly set up. Colonel Tom Edwards, in charge of saucer field activities, was to make the greatest decision of his career. He made that decision. Colonel Edwards gave the signal to fire. Swiftly as they had come, they were gone, even to the piercing eye of radar and the speeding jet fighters.
Quite a sight, wasn't it, sir?
A sight I'd rather not be seeing.
Are you worried about them, sir?
Well, they must have a reason for their visits.
Visits? Well, that would indicate visitors. Well, the big gun's the usual way of welcoming visitors.
We haven't always fired at them.
Oh?
For a time, we tried to contact them by radio, but no response. Then they attacked a town. A small town, I'll admit, but nevertheless a town of people. People who died.
I never heard about that, sir.
Well, it was covered up by the higher echelon. Take any fire, any earthquake, any major disaster, then wonder. Flying saucers, Captain, are still a rumor. Officially.
Looks like we beat them off again, sir.
What do they want? Where are they from? Where are they going?
They, sir? Who? Well, this is a training maneuver, sir. We only did a little practice firing at the clouds.
Yeah. I wonder what their next move will be.
What will their next move be?
Your space commander has returned from Earth.
Send him in. You have your report?
We had to pull in here to Space Station 7 for regeneration. We're returning to the planet Earth immediately thereafter.
What progress has been made?
We contacted government officials. They refuse our existence.
What plan will you follow now?
Plan 9. It's been absolutely impossible to work through these Earth creatures. Their soul is too controlled.
Plan 9. Ah, yes. Plan 9 deals with the resurrection of the dead. Long-distance electrode shot into the pineal and pituitary glands of recent dead. Have you attempted any of this plan as yet?
Yes, Excellency.
How successful has it been?
We have risen 2 so far. We shall be just as successful on more.
The living, they have no suspicion of your movements?
We had to dispose of 1 policeman. However, none of those risen have been seen. At least not by anyone who still remains alive.
It's too bad it must be handled this way. But it must. Those who we take from the grave will lead the way for our other operations.
Yes, Excellency.
Continue on. Report to me in 2 Earth days.
I feared His Excellency wouldn't take our report this well.
Well, had he been dealing with our own people, his reaction would have been completely different. He understands the difficulties of the Earth race.
What do you think will be the next obstacle the Earth people will put in our way?
Well, as long as they can think, we'll have our problems. But those whom we're using cannot think. They are the dead, brought to a simulated life by our electrode guns. You know, it's an interesting thing when you consider the Earth people who can think are so frightened by those who cannot, the dead. Well, our ship should be regenerated. We better get started.
I still think you ought to go in town and stay with your mother until I get back.
This is our home, and nothing's going to take me from it. Besides, most men try and keep their wives from going home to Mama.
That's not the point.
That's all the point there's going to be. Now toddle off and fly your flying machine, darling. But if you see any more flying saucers, will you tell them to pick another house to buzz? Be careful. Don't worry about me.
Oh, you're the only thing I do worry about. Oh, forget about the flying saucers. They're up there.
But there's something in that cemetery. And that's too close for comfort.
The saucers are up there, and the cemetery's out there. But I'll be locked up in there. Now, off to your wild blue yonders.
You promise you'll lock the doors immediately?
I promise. Besides, I'll be in bed before half an hour is gone, with your pillow beside me.
My pillow?
Well, I have to have something to keep me company while you're away. Sometimes in the night when it does get a little lonely, I reach over and touch it. Then it doesn't seem so lonely anymore.
A crazy kid. I do love you, darling.
See you Thursday.
Goodbye, honey.
You know I'm not leaving you here until you're locked safely inside.
All right, darling. If you're especially nice, I may even lock the side door.
And be sure you keep the yard lights on.
You're mighty silent this trip, Jeff.
Hmm?
You haven't spoken 10 words since takeoff.
I guess I'm preoccupied, Danny.
We've got 33 passengers back there that have time to be preoccupied. Flying this flybird doesn't give you that opportunity.
I guess you're right, Danny.
Paula,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong between you two.
Oh, no, nothing like that. Just that I'm worried she being there alone and those strange things flying over the house and those incidents in the graveyard these past few days. It's just got me worried.
Well, maybe they haven't figured out those crazy skybirds yet, but I'd give you 50 to 1 odds the police have cleared up that cemetery thing by now.
I hope so.
If you're really that worried, Jeff, why don't you radio in and find out? Mac should be on duty at the field by now. He could call Paul and relay the message to you.
Hi, Edie.
Hi, Silence. I haven't heard a word from this end of the plane since we left the field.
I've just been giving himself and me a study in silence.
You boys aren't feuding.
No, Edie, nothing like that.
Hey, Edie, how about you and me balling it up in Albuquerque?
Albuquerque, have you read that flight schedule, boy?
What about it?
We land in Albuquerque at 4 a.m. That's strictly a 9 o'clock town.
Well, I know a friend that'll help us.
Let's have the problem first. Huh, Danny?
Oh, he's worried about Paula.
I read about that cemetery business. I tried to get you kids not to buy too near one of those things. We get there soon enough as it is.
He thought it'd be quiet and peaceful there.
No doubt about that. It's quiet all right, like a tomb. I'm sorry, Jeff. That was a bad joke. Say, I almost forgot what I came in here for. How's the coffee situation?
That's for me.
It sure wouldn't hurt nothing, Edie.
Okay, be right back. And say, Jeff, make that call to Mac.
Nah, not only she throw cold water on my Albuquerque plan, but now she's repeating herself. How about that Albuquerque ball?
I can't resist your charm, Danny boy.
Residents near the cemetery paid little attention to the blast of thunder and the flash of lightning. But from the blast arose the moving figure of the dead old man.
Hello? Who? Mac? Well, hi, Mac. Sure, I'm all right. I just fell asleep. Tell Jeff I'm all right. Okay, Mac. Thanks for calling. Good night.
flying saucer? Thank you. I'm just gonna take the whole rod from you. Okay, I want to talk about these for a second. Now, the flying saucers in this movie are not brilliant. And for a while there was a lot of talk about what were they made out of. Some people thought they were made out of paper plates, and some people thought they were made out of hubcaps, but they're really just hobby kits. At the time, Ed Wood just ran to the nearest hobby shop and bought like 12 of them and drilled holes, attached them to some line and a fishing rod, and went at it. A couple of them he lit on fire. But this one is actually, for real, a Plan 9 from Outer Space flying saucer model kit that you can get on Amazon. So yeah, if you just are dying for that Plan 9 merch, I love mine. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the narration in this movie. How patronizing is it? I feel like it's trying to explain to you what's happening as it's happening. It breaks all the rules of show, don't tell. It's showing you and it's telling you at the same time. Unnecessarily so. I mean, I guess it's explaining what the actors are responding to or how they're feeling because most of their reactions are pretty deadpan or lacking at best. But still, I feel like it's just unnecessary and kind of preachy. But I gotta say, I love the headline that's on the newspaper, Flying Saucers Over Hollywood. I feel like that's just such a kind of an iconic line or title. I'd love to get that on like a poster or a shirt or something. I don't know. I love that line, Flying Saucers Over Hollywood. Let's talk about the stock footage in this movie, shall we? I feel like at least a fifth of this movie is just stock footage. Whether it's shots of the military, or it's a plane, or whatever. So much of it is just stock footage. In most of Ed Wood's movies, he beefs up his movies by using stock footage to kind of fill up the loose ends of things that he couldn't shoot himself. Like in Plan 9, he had the whole fight with the military and the aliens, and he needed the look of rockets being launched. But so he used military stock footage, and then we see what's exploding around the flying saucers, and it's just a little fireworks. But it's stuff like that. I feel like it's like a homemade movie, which is so charming and so great. But it's from the 50s. Anyway, let's talk about the mothership. You know, in Star Wars, when the Millennium Falcon is showing up to the Death Star, as they get closer to the Death Star gets bigger, and the Millennium Falcon gets smaller. In this movie, the mothership is just floating there in space, just very still, and the 3 flying saucers just pull up and go behind the thing. They don't really shrink. I mean, I guess kind of, but it's not the same. It's definitely not shrinking enough to be like, oh, this is a large ship. No, they just sort of go behind, and then the next time we see some aliens walking into a curtained room with wood furniture and a guy wearing a knight costume. The leader of the aliens, which I forget what the character's name is, honestly, but the actor's name is Bunny Breckenridge. I love this guy's delivery of his lines all through these scenes because he just doesn't care. He doesn't like have any emotion, nothing. There's no major response. There's even a part later on where there's like a little bit of things get out of control, and even then his reactions are all just very like, oh, no, don't, like in this bit when he's talking about Plan 9, he's like, Plan 9, pulls up a piece of paper, which happens to be the script. Yes. Just like literally reads his lines from the script. There's a lot of script reading lines in this movie. The other pilot in the cockpit, spoilers, was reading his lines. His script was literally sitting in his lap. So when he's like looking down like this, he's looking at a script. But I feel like it's great. I feel it's like the same problem you'd have if you had your friends in your movie. They'd probably read their script too and probably wouldn't practice their lines and know it. They would just like, okay, cool. It's like a movie made by a bunch of homies with one dude who's really stoked. Before we get back to the movie, I just want to bring up one more thing. So that scene where Tor Johnson's character, Inspector Clay, is coming back from the dead, I love that scene. I feel like it's kind of iconic. His pulling himself up out of the grave, and you got the light behind the headstone and everything. It's kind of slow, it's kind of awkward, but it's great. I feel like it's kind of the sort of thing that I'd want on loop on a screen at like a Halloween party or something. And speaking of Halloween, his face from this movie with his mouth agape and the scar on his face was used to make a really popular and collectible Halloween mask from Don Post Studios. It's still really collectible today, and it's one of their best-selling masks. But yeah, with that, let's get back to it.
They'll be at the hatch in a moment. You can open it now, Tanner. Turn off the electrodes quickly. They can't tell us from anyone else.
It's tough to find something when you don't know what you're looking for.
I don't think the lieutenant does either.
Then what are we doing out here? I was off duty an hour ago.
Oh, don't ask me any questions. I'm just a hard hand just like you.
What do you suppose that noise was?
Whatever it was, it's no more strange than the other things happening around this cemetery.
Spirits like old Farmer Caller talked about.
Well, maybe.
The only spirits he saw tonight were those I smelled on his breath.
Well, don't forget, Miss Trent claims to have seen them, too. She didn't have anything on her breath.
She was hysterical.
Well, true, she was frightened and in a state of shock. But don't forget that torn nightgown and the scratched feet.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Guess that's why you're a detective lieutenant and I'm still a uniformed cop.
Sometimes it's only the breaks, Larry. Meantime, let's get going.
Lieutenant, did you hear that?
How could we help it? It sure was strange.
Know what it was?
No more than you do. If it went for orders, I'd get out of here right now.
It was a saucer.
A flying saucer? What makes you say that?
Do you remember the noise we heard the other night?
We were knocked to the ground. How could I forget?
Exactly. But you're not remembering that sound.
There you're wrong, Lieutenant. I'm with the fact the sound is similar, but what about the blinding light?
Well, haven't you heard? Been many times the saucer hasn't had a glow. Or a light of any kind, for that matter.
That proves it. What next, Lieutenant?
Oh, Lieutenant, maybe this doesn't mean much, but Jamie Mee found a grave that looks like it's been busted into.
What? Where?
Why, what?
Come on, man, out with it. We haven't got all day to waste.
Oh, just over there beyond the crib.
All right, show us the way.
Look, here it is, Lieutenant.
It's been broken into, all right.
Strange. If someone had broken in, the dirt should be piled up here somewhere. It looks like it's fallen into the grave.
Larry, you'll be out of that uniform before you know it.
Do we have the right to look down there, Lieutenant?
Technically, no.
No?
Well, this spot looks familiar, though. Yeah, we shouldn't investigate any further without the permission of next of kin.
Let's go get it.
How? I see what you mean. The gravestone's down there.
Well, let's go down and find out whose grave it is.
How?
By going down and finding out.
Are you sure you mean that, Lieutenant?
If I didn't mean it, I wouldn't have said it. Scared?
Well, why do I always get hooked up with these spook details? Monsters, graves, bodies. Oh, all right. Casket's here, but nobody's in it.
Can you read the name on the casket?
It's too dark. Give me a flashlight.
How about a match?
We sure could try it. Let me have them.
Okay.
It's Inspector Clay's grave, but he ain't in it.
But meanwhile, at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C.,
Right, G2. Come in. Yes, of course. I'll keep in touch. Come in, Colonel Edwards. Close the door. At ease, Colonel.
Thank you, sir.
Sit down. I understand, Colonel, you've been on tap for many of our saucer attacks.
I'm in charge of field operations, sir.
You believe there are such things as flying saucers, Colonel?
Yes, sir.
You've seen them?
Yes, sir.
You realize there's a government directive stating that there is no such thing as a flying saucer?
Yes, sir.
You stand by your statement that you've seen flying saucers?
Well, yes, sir.
This could mean a court-martial, admitting this against direct orders.
General Roberts, may I speak freely?
You may.
How could I hope to hold down my command if I didn't believe in what I saw and shot at?
I like you, Colonel.
Thank you, sir.
There are flying saucers. There's no doubt they are in our skies. They've been there for some time.
What are we going to do about them?
Who knows?
Then they really are there.
I thought you were convinced of that.
I am.
We've had contact with them.
Contact? How?
Radio.
They speak our language?
Well, not quite. We've received messages from their spaceships. For a while, it came in as just a lot of jumbled noise.
And now, sir?
Well, since they first tried contact with us by radio, we've developed a language computer. A machine that breaks down any language to our own.
General, what's this all got to do with me?
Well, you've been in charge of saucer field activity for a long while. I think it's about time you heard these recordings. You mind?
Mind? Huh, I'm anxious.
This is Eros, a space soldier from a planet of your galaxy. I fully realize our language differences. However, I also know you finally have perfected the dictolobotary, or as you on Earth call it, the language computer. So you can now understand that which I speak. Since the beginning of your time, we have been far beyond your planet. It has taken you centuries to even grasp what we developed eons of your years ago. Do you still believe it impossible we exist? You didn't actually think you were the only inhabited planet in the universe. How can any race be so stupid? Permit me to set your mind at ease. We do not want to conquer your planet, only save it. We could have destroyed it long ago if that had been our aim. Our principal purpose is friendly. I admit we have had to take certain means which you might refer to as criminal. But that is because of your big guns which have destroyed some of our representatives. If you persist in denying us our landings, then we must only accept that you do not want us on friendly terms. We then have no alternative but to destroy you before you destroy us. With your ancient juvenile minds, you have developed explosives too fast for your minds to conceive what you are doing. You are on the verge of destroying the entire universe. We are a part of that universe. This is our last...
That's the end of that one. Atmospheric conditions in outer space often interfere with transmitting.
How many of these recordings do you have, General?
An even dozen up to now. This was the last one. We received it over a month ago.
You think they mean business?
We can't afford to take any chances. Come over here. You ever been to Hollywood?
Oh, a couple of times, a few years ago.
You're going to be there in the morning. Just a few minutes from Hollywood, in the town of San Fernando, reports have come in of saucers flying so low the exhaust knocked people to the ground. There have even been stated claims of saucer landings. Major Carlson will replace you while you're out there. You're the best man for the job of attempting to contact them. Find them, Colonel. See what in hell it is they want.
All right, sir.
These are confidential reports, Colonel. Read them over carefully on the plane. Turn them over to intelligence when you get to Los Angeles. They'll have further orders for disposition.
Yes, sir.
Colonel Edwards?
Yes, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
We are ready to report, Excellency.
You are many days late.
It was unavoidable. We tried to transmit via televisor, but atmospheric conditions made transmission impossible.
You should have transmitted as soon as conditions permitted.
I thought time was of the essence. Suspicion has fallen upon our movements. Our ships have been viewed near the point of operations.
And what has this added time gained, Eros?
We have successfully risen 3 of the dead ones.
Permit me to see one.
Bring in the big one. Use your small electrode gun.
I have taken 2 ships from your command.
But that will leave only my ship.
It is necessary that you continue your mission alone. I have need of your other ships elsewhere. Even though you have risen 3 of the Earth's dead, the plan is far from successful. And you, Eros, must prove it an operational success before more time, energy, ships, and your countrymen may be spent on it.
We will not fail. Everything is on our side.
Not everything. You do not have the live Earth people. You reported that your ship was viewed at the scene of your present operations.
That is correct.
They have been viewed many times, but not at the scene of operations. Something must be done about that.
Stop him, Turner. He's close enough. Turn off your electrode gun. No! No! Stop him, Turner!
I can't get it. It's jammed.
Stop him, you fool!
Drop the gun to the floor, Tanner. The metal will break contact.
That was too close.
Yes. Bring the giant here that I may get a better look at him. Yes, he's a fine specimen. Are they all this powerful on planet Earth?
This one is an exception, Excellency.
What are the other 2 like?
One is a woman, the other an old man.
An old man, you say?
Yes, Excellency.
This gives me a plan. Put the big one away.
Pick up your electrode gun. Make sure it's in working order before pointing it at him.
Whatever made it jam seems to have been cleared by the fall.
Take him back to the ship.
The old one must be sacrificed. Re-land on Earth. Send the old one to enter a dwelling. Then cut the electrokinetic and turn on your ship's decomposure ray. The result will astound those watching. Astound them enough to delay their intention until you have gained your other recruits from the cemetery.
Yes, Excellency. It'll be done.
Report to me when this has been accomplished. Eros, the Earth people are getting closer to that which we fear. Since they will not listen or respect our existence, they cannot help but believe our powers when they see their own dead walking round again, brought about by our advancement and such things. As soon as you have enough of the dead recruits, march them on the capitals of the Earth. Let nothing stand in your way. Their own dead will be used to make them accept our existence and believe in that fact.
Have you guys noticed how when they go into the saucer, it's not a saucer, it's a giant square room. When they're outside, they walk up to this thing with like a ladder attached to it, and the last time I checked, the saucers are all round. The whole structure is round and the top is round. There's nothing square. So I don't know where they're getting this square building that they're walking into. But again, that fits into the narrative of it's not about the details, it's about the big picture. Also, let's talk about those guys at the Pentagon. They're listening to the first alien recording. They're listening to it together. We are hearing from creatures from another world. And they're just sitting there and they're like, it also gets cut off before it's all completely done. And it's just deadpan. So much of the reactions to what's happening in this movie is deadpan. If people were actually seeing aliens and those aliens were bringing dead bodies back to life, people would be freaking out. They wouldn't be like, oh man, and this is the first time we're communicating with them? Oh wow, oh geez. It's just, there's no reaction. Also, I feel like this is the first movie I've ever seen where someone is moving another character using a gun, using a ray gun. Because, so they're walking around, I guess the character Tana, the lady alien, played by Joanna Lee, she's got her little electrode gun and she's pointing it at Tor's back and clicking it constantly to get him to move someplace. And then eventually her gun malfunctions and he's on the attack and attacks Eros, the other alien, played by a guy named Dudley Manlove. And yeah, so then the ray gun malfunctions. Bunny says, oh man, you should drop it, and then it'll like break the connection. And then it just goes on. They never mention the malfunctioning ray gun again. There's no point to bringing that up or having that scene. I feel like he was just trying to spice up the moment to add a little action. But yeah, don't know. I mean, I guess I've seen hostage situations where someone's pointing a gun at somebody to get them to move, but I've never seen it be where they're literally using it to direct them and like it's a remote control or something. I don't know, kind of a weird idea. Anyway, we're almost done, so let's get back to it.
Miss Strand. This is Colonel Edwards from Washington, D.C.
Good evening, Colonel.
Hello, Colonel.
Colonel would like to ask you a few questions.
Questions? What about, Colonel? May I sit down?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please do.
I want to ask you about your strange experience the other night when you saw the flying saucer.
After that, the police brought me home. I hope I never see such a sight again.
Well, after your description, I don't think I'd want to see it either. One thing more. After you were forced to the ground by that blast of wind, was it a hot or cold blast?
It's kind of hard to explain. It wasn't hot, wasn't cold. It was just a terrific force. We couldn't get off the ground.
The light blinded me so badly, I couldn't see a thing. We could only feel the pressure of the wind until it was gone. When the glare left us, we could see a glowing ball disappearing off in the distance,
Which way?
toward the cemetery.
This is the most fantastic story I've ever heard.
And every word of it's true, too.
That's the fantastic part of it.
Colonel, we found a lot of suspicious things out in that cemetery. But then again, didn't find anything to base a fact or suspicion on. Hey, you hear anything? You see anything out there, Kelton?
Too dark, Lieutenant. But something started stinking awful bad.
There's something out there.
What do you make of that?
She got me. Didn't look that way a minute ago.
What about your man?
Oh, the excitement I forgot all about, Kelton. He'll be all right in a few minutes.
Did you see that thing? Did you get it?
We got it.
What was it? It didn't fall. I fired every bullet I had.
So did I. I don't know what it was or what happened. But unless that bag of bones over there can reassemble itself, it's out of the running now. Colonel, I've been out here so often you think I've taken a lease on this place.
Not a long lease, I hope.
I see what you mean. But you know, I can't help but feel the answer's out here somewhere.
Is the girl safe?
Mrs. Trent, you better stay with the car.
Stay here alone? Not on your life.
Modern women.
Yeah, they've been that way all down through the ages, especially in a spot like this.
Calvin.
Yes, sir.
Stay with Mrs. Trent.
All right, Lieutenant.
Now, you stay close to the officer, honey.
I'd feel safer with you.
Now, the lieutenant knows best.
Well, I don't like it, but I guess there isn't much I can do about it.
You have a gun?
know.
You know how to use one?
After 4 years in the Marine Corps,
Here.
you think we'll need these?
You never tell. Let's get going.
Would expect to find out here.
Well, there's only one answer to that, Mr. Trent. We'll know when we find it. Inspector Clay's grave's right over here.
Is that the one you told me was broken into?
Yes.
This it?
Yeah.
Looks to me like someone had broken out instead of in.
I figured that, but that's impossible.
I wonder.
Look, Colonel, some things just can't happen.
Yeah, well, after that apparition that was draped across Mr. Trent's patio, I would say we should keep our minds open to anything.
Look, Colonel, I'm a policeman. I've got to deal in facts. But I guess I'll have to go along with you. You know, I'll bet my badge right now we haven't seen the last of those weirdies.
They'll discover our ship soon.
You're going to let them find us?
It's the only way. These are the same men who have been so close so often. They must be halted before they can inform others about us.
But there were others in the car.
They'll be taken too. Send the big one for the girl and the policeman. I'll turn on the dictylrobotary so we may converse with them.
Barking up the wrong tree.
One thing a policeman learns, Mr. Trent, is patience.
Where's that burn spot you mentioned?
Right over there. Look. We'll investigate, but move carefully.
Two more, and you will be the first live Earth people ever to enter a celestial ship.
Wow. Boy, how can anything that big hide for so long a time?
Never heard metal sound like that before. What do you see?
Only my reflection. Must be some kind of one-way glass.
I wonder how you get into this thing.
I'm not sure I want to find out.
They're just outside. You can open the outer hatch now.
Look out!
You going in that thing?
That's what we're here for.
I don't know. The way these things speed around, we might just get in there and off it goes.
That's a chance we take.
Well, I took a chance on those earlier airplanes. Might just as well see what the inside of one of these looks like. Got your guns ready?
I tell you one thing, if a little green man pops out of me, I'm shooting first and asking questions later.
And with that, we've entered the ship, and we are about to find ourselves in probably the longest, preachiest monologue of the movie. The monologue that I'm talking about is delivered by Dudley Manlove, who plays the alien Eros. It goes all over the place. It literally has a little bit of pseudoscience, a little bit of religion, a little bit of war commentary, and 8-year-old tantrums. I don't know. He acts like a spoiled baby when he's not getting his way. Going back a little bit, let's talk about Tom Keene, the guy that's playing Bela Lugosi's character, even though they don't have any more clips of Bela Lugosi to be able to finish up the movie. So they go to the backyard, and he's walking up. The cops don't really know what to do, so they start shooting at him. Nothing's happening, and he attacks one cop, and after he attacks him, the cape starts to fall down. And did you guys notice that he literally reaches back to pull the cape back over his shoulders? That's one of those things where that should have been a retake, because a zombie, ghoulish character like that has no consciousness is not going to be concerned whether or not its cape falls off or not. But I guess there was a plan where the aliens were going to get rid of the older of the undead characters, so a ray of light comes from the flying saucer wherever it's at, and he turns into a skeleton. They couldn't just have him disintegrate, it had to be a skeleton. Yeah, literally just killed like that. Probably one of the only on-screen deaths in the movie. Before we get back to the movie and we finish it up for good, I just want to mention, I've never seen a high five be used as a form of violence until this movie. When Tor Johnson's character walks up to the cop and gives him a double high five and knocks him to the ground, I don't know how that was supposed to knock him out, but I love it. I love that a high five is used for violence in these movies. Anyway, next time I see you, it'll be at the end, so let's finish up Plan 9 from Outer Space.
They're in the outer chamber now. Eros, do we have to kill them?
Yes.
Seems such a waste.
Well, wouldn't it be better to kill a few now than, with their meddling, permit them to destroy the entire universe?
You're always right, Eros.
Of course. But those are not my words. Those are the words of the ruler.
You two stay right where you're at.
We will do as you command. For the moment.
No for the moment about it. You just do as I tell you.
You do not need guns.
Maybe we think we do.
They would be of no use to you now.
They've been mighty useful before on flesh and blood. And you two look like you've got a lot of both.
True, they would be effective upon us. If you were to have the opportunity to use them...
Mister, if you don't get away from that control board, I'll show you just how effective they can be.
Shall we talk now or wait? Your friends will be here shortly.
What friends?
Those you left at the vehicle.
If you've done anything to Paula...
Take it easy, Mr. Trent. Oh, I assure you no harm has come to her. Would you like to see?
Next time you try that, I won't aim at the board.
You're a headstrong young man. I was only going to turn on the televisor so you could see her movements.
Go ahead, my friend, but move very carefully.
She's only fainted.
You fiend.
I? A fiend? I am a soldier of our planet. I? A fiend? We did not come here as enemies. We came only with friendly intentions, to talk, to ask your aid.
Our aid?
Yes, your aid for the whole universe. But your governments of Earth refused even to accept our existence. Even though you've seen us, heard our messages, you still refuse to accept us.
Why is it so important that you want to contact the governments of our Earth?
Because of death. Because all you of Earth are idiots.
Now, you just hold on, Buster.
No, you hold on. First was your firecracker, a harmless explosive. Then your hand grenade. They began to kill your own people a few at a time. Then the bomb. Then a larger bomb. Many people are killed at one time. Then your scientists stumbled upon the atom bomb, split the atom. Then the hydrogen bomb, where you actually explode the air itself. Now you can brings the total destruction of the entire universe served by our sun. The only explosion left is the Summerween.
Why, there's no such thing.
Perhaps to you, but we've known it for centuries. Your scientists will stumble upon it as they have all the others. But the juvenile minds which you possess will not comprehend its strength until it's too late.
You're way above our heads.
The Summerween is a way to explode the actual particles of sunlight.
Why, that's impossible.
Even now, your scientists are working on a way to harness the sun's rays. The rays of sunlight are minute particles. Is it so far from your imagination they cannot do as I have suggested?
Why, a particle of sunlight can't even be seen or measured.
Can you see or measure an atom? Yet you can explode one. A ray of sunlight is made up of many atoms.
So what if we do develop this solar night bomb? We'd be even a stronger nation than now.
Stronger. You see? You see? Your stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
That's all I'm taking from you.
Get back here, you fool!
Let him finish.
It's because of men like you that all must be destroyed. Headstrong, violent, no use of the mind God gave you.
You talk of God?
You also think it impossible that we too might think of God? You, who wear the uniform of your country, you see, I wear the uniform of my country. Yes, we've had to use drastic means to get to you, but you left us no alternative. When you have the Summerween, you have nothing. Nor does the universe.
You speak of solar night, but just what is it?
Take a can of your gasoline. Say, this can of gasoline is the sun. Now, you spread a thin line of it to a ball, representing the earth. Now, the gasoline represents the sunlight, the sun particles. Here we saturate the ball with the gasoline, the sunlight. Then we put a flame to the ball. The flame will speedily travel around the earth, back along the line of gasoline to the can, or the sun itself. It will explode this source and spread to every place that gasoline, our sunlight, touches. Explode the sunlight here, gentlemen. You explode the universe. Explode the sunlight here, and a chain reaction will occur direct to the sun itself and to all the planets that sunlight touches, to every planet in the universe. This is why you must be stopped. This is why any means must be used to stop you. In a friendly manner, or as it seems, you want it.
He's mad.
Mad? Is it mad that you destroy other people to save yourselves? You have done this. Is it mad that one country must destroy another to save themselves? You have also done this. How then is it mad that one planet must destroy another who threatens the very existence?
That's enough! In my land, women are for advancing the race, not for fighting man's battle. Life is not so expansive on my planet. We don't cling to it like you do. Our entire aim is for the development of our planet.
What happened to you?
How come you're all alone? I asked for lots of help.
You sounded drunk or something on the radio.
If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I'd never believe it.
Believe what?
It was horrible. And he almost broke my shoulder.
Look, what are you trying to say? If you don't make sense, we'll never get to the bottom of this. Now, who slugged you?
Inspector Clay.
What?
It was Clay, all right. Only not like we remembered him. Well, his grave was busted into, wasn't it?
Next, you'll tell me you saw skeletons.
We did, earlier.
Now I know you're off your rocker.
All of us saw it. The lieutenant, the colonel, everybody.
Where's the lieutenant now?
We've got to find him. Mrs. Trent is gone. I was left here to guard her. But Clay showed up and put me out of the running. And the second time tonight, and I'm getting darn tired of it.
Which way were they going?
Off that way.
Come on.
Then one day it could all be gone. One big puff of smoke and ball of fire. All that out there, the stars, the planets, all just an empty void.
You two had better come along with us.
Come with you? Where?
The police station.
So it seems you think you have the upper hand. Look out that window.
Jeff.
She is unarmed, but he would kill in seconds if I so choose.
Holy cow! Look there. It's Clay, all right. There's no mistaking that.
And he's got Mrs. Trent.
Get your gun ready.
From all I've seen tonight, guns won't do any good. Clay is dead, and we buried him. How are we going to kill somebody that's already dead? Dead! And yet there he stands. That other one earlier, I emptied a full clip into.
I'm seeing it. That's the only reason I'm listening to you. Look, I've got an idea. Hurt him or not, we've got to try something. I'm going to sneak up behind him and whop him over the head. That ought to make a move. Follow me. Even when Clay was alive, he couldn't run fast enough to catch me. So when he does, you grab Mrs. Trent and run like lightning in the opposite direction.
Oh, you think it'll work?
Know of anything else to try?
Oh, I'll be all right. Take care of the others.
Your men have felled the big one. This could only happen because the electrode ray is off. He'll walk again when I turn it on.
Hold it. Right there.
Suppose the lieutenant and the others are in that thing.
Well, supposing there are Martians or something in there.
Come on, let's go.
Open up in there. Open up.
Get that door open. Colonel, I wouldn't know one switch from another.
Hold on to him, Eros. I'll have the ship in the air in a minute.
Get out of here, Jeff. The ship's on fire.
if that's the last we'll see of them.
Perhaps. But sooner or later, there'll be others.
Look!
Have they caught that woman? That thing yet?
Hey, that's right. There's another ghoul running loose. And it's my guess that she'll look like him. With the ship and the ray gun gone, they have no control. We gotta hand it to them, though. They're far ahead of us.
My friend, you have seen this incident based on sworn testimony. Can you prove that it didn't happen? Perhaps on your way home, someone will pass you in the dark, and you will never know it, for they will be from outer space. Many scientists believe that another world is watching us this moment. We once laughed at the horseless carriage, the airplane, the telephone, the electric light, vitamins, radio, and even television. And now some of us laugh at outer space. God help us in the future.
You see, your stupid minds, stupid. Classic. I feel like, you know what I was talking about, how I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like a tantrum. He literally goes from being very like regal and trying to sound so authoritative to just sounding like a child. Also, let's talk about this bomb, the Solarmanite bomb, the Solanite. Not one of these people can agree how you say the word. All they would have had to do before shooting the scene is just like, okay, so how are we going to say this? But literally, not one of them says it the same as the other. So we get a dead Tor Johnson, who turns also into a skeleton, but we get no dead Vampira. And Joanna Lee, who plays the other alien Tana, decides to take the flying saucer, which is now on fire after their fight with the humans, and try to escape, screaming Eros' name because he's either dead or unconscious, and the humans look on as the flaming flying saucer's in the air and explodes, and we get the final line of the movie, God help us in the future, delivered beautifully by Criswell. Just a thought. After rewatching this movie and having recently watched The Thing from 1951, that movie's got a really well-known final line of "Watch the skies." I feel like this is trying to be that, but it's just not at all. It's just not landing. But with that, that's Plan 9, baby. You know, in spite of its flaws and the many mess-ups throughout the movie, it's probably one of my favorite sci-fi movies from the 50s. Not because it's so brilliantly executed with all of its special effects, or any of the special effects for that matter, but because it's just done in good earnest. I mean, Ed Wood loved his movies and was passionate about his movies and did what he had to do, and, you know, took money from whoever was willing to give it so he could make his movies. Glen or Glenda, Bride of the Monster, Plan 9, all of them. They each have their own crazy story when it comes to making it, and for each one, he had like strong feelings about it and loved it. With Plan 9, something that he would do, like years after it had come out, it would start getting played late night on television, and whenever it was on, he found out, he'd call up people from the movie or his other friends to tell them, "My movie's on!" And he was always so excited. He'd stay up and watch the movie, even if he'd seen it a bunch of times. He was just so excited that it was on TV. And I feel like there's just something about that all of us could kind of learn a little bit from. Whatever you're gonna do, just be excited about it. Be passionate about it. Be a little bit more like Ed Wood. And with that, I'd like to share just one brief message to my fellow graduates of the apocalypse. To my fellow graduates of probably the craziest year of our lifetimes, whether you're finishing up high school, college, or graduate school, or something in between, I offer both congratulations and a word of warning to prepare yourselves. This is where it all begins. Whatever you're prepared to do, whether it's going to school or enter the workplace, do it fully. If you're going to change it up, which is probably going to happen at some point in your life, whatever that change is, commit to it and do it fully. What you do in your life or in your school process may not be appreciated by your peers, your family, your friends, or anyone else you meet, but you never know who it may affect positively. But in spite of that, tell people what you're up to. Celebrate what it is that you're doing because you're passionate about it, not because you're waiting for someone else to tell you it's good. Push through the difficulties and go all the way with whatever you choose to pursue. To the class of 2020, congratulations on your accomplishment during the apocalypse. And everybody, happy Summerween. Stay scared.
He did them all